I never imagined sharing this, but life always has surprises in store for us. My name is Elise and I'm 44 years old. I've been a single mother for a long time, raising my son alone. His name is Lenyon. He's now 22 years old. We've always been close, navigating the ups and downs of life together. One evening, something unique happened. Lenny looked exhausted and told me he wasn't feeling well. He had been working hard and studying a lot. As he looked outside, something unexpected occurred. I told him he could lie down on my bed if he wanted to rest. It was a cold night at home, and he was taking a while to warm up. So I covered him with a thick blanket. At first, it felt normal, like a mother helping her son. But as I lay down beside him, I felt him move closer. He must have been trying to warm up. I didn't pay much attention to it, but then he wrapped his arms around me, gently pulling me close like he used to when he was younger. I was a bit surprised, but let it happen. He probably just needed comfort. I could feel his warmth against me, his steady breathing. Lying there, I felt Lenny's breathing slow as if he were falling to sleep. The room was so quiet that I could hear the beating of my own heart. It was strange, but also soothing. I didn't move, not wanting to disturb him. I told myself it was just a mother comforting her son, but after a while, he moved closer still. Under the blanket, I felt his arm tighten around, and I froze for a moment, unsure of how to think. Part of me wanted to say something or pull away, but another part stayed still. There was a tension in the air I couldn't ignore, and I didn't know I was feeling it. Then something happened that surprised me. I felt something hard under the blanket. My heart started racing. I tried to stay calm, reminding myself that he was just my son. Maybe he didn't even realize it. I lay there trying to ignore the feelings starting to build up inside me. I told myself it was just a moment, just a strange and awkward moment that would pass. But as the minutes went by, I realized things were different and I didn't know how to handle the situation. Lenny stayed close to me. His breathing was steady, but I could feel the warmth between us growing. I wanted to move to say something light to break the tension, but the words wouldn't come. I felt trapped in that moment, unsure of what I was feeling. Then Lenny shifted slightly, lifting his head to look at me. His gaze was softer than I'd ever seen before, a mix of safety and nervousness. He didn't say anything, but this look seemed to ask if everything was okay. I tried to smile, hoping it would ease the strange feeling, but it only deepened the silence. Lenny's hand stayed on my arm, warm, soft, and steady. I could feel his fingers moving gently, almost absent-mindedly. It was a small thing, but every touch seemed to awaken something in me that I couldn't understand. I breathed calmly, trying not to let him see that my heart was racing. I didn't know what to do or say, so I lay there completely absorbed by the strange connection between us. I kept telling myself it was just a mother comforting her son. Nothing more. But in that silence, both of us under the blanket, my mind was spinning with thoughts that felt wrong, but that I couldn't push away. Lying there, so close to him, I felt something deeper, a closeness I didn't understand. I was experiencing a mix of confusion and warmth, an unexpected feeling that held him. Yet, Lenny didn't seem to notice my struggle. He just stayed beside me, his hand moving gently to comfort me as I thought were the most natural thing in the world. His breathing was calm, his eyes closed again, and I wondered if he was falling asleep. Then, his hand moved slowly down my arm. A shiver ran through him. He opened his eyes and looked straight into mine. His gaze was questioning, as if asking if I was okay with this. I felt the same strange attraction he did. He whispered my name, barely able to say the word. I wanted to stop, to pull away, to create some distance, but I couldn't. The tension between us was too strong, like a silent storm brewing. In the silence, neither of us spoke, but the air was filled with unspoken words, things we felt but couldn't bring ourselves to say. He moved closer. My heart was pounding, mind racing, but I couldn't bring myself to pull back. I felt torn between my role as a mother and the strange feelings that had surfaced. As he got closer, I felt my breath catch, and all my thoughts faded, leaving only Thatman between us. Lenny's hand rested gently on my shoulder. His fingers lingered as if he were hesitating to doubt the world around us seemed distant, and he could only focus on the warmth of his presence, the steady beat of his heart that I could almost hear. For a moment, I closed my eyes, trying to calm myself. I told myself to pull back, to break this confusing and unsettling closeness. Then, I felt his hand move gently, brushing a strand of hair from my face. Thought it was such a simple, caring gesture, yet it made my heart ache in a way I didn't understand. I opened my eyes and was looking at me with such tenderness, such trust. His face was so close and I could see every little detail, the tiny freckles, the gentle curve of his mouth, the way his eyes searched mine. There was a vulnerability in his gaze that matched mine, and I could see he was as lost in this moment as I was. I was suspended in silence, as if time itself had stopped and my mind was a whirlwind of questions, doubts, things I didn't understand. But my body didn't move. I felt drawn to him, this person I had raised, yet had felt like someone entirely new to me. At that moment, as I thought we'd remain frozen in that silence forever, Lenny pulled back slightly, breaking the trance. He looked away, almost embarrassed, and let out a shaky laugh, rubbing the back of his neck. That brought me back to reality, making me realize how close we had been, everything we had shared. Suddenly, the weight of it all hit me. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself against the wave of emotions that seemed to surge from every corner of my being. I desperately hoped he hadn't noticed the inner turmoil tormenting me. "Sorry, Mom," he said in a soft, hesitant voice, tinged with uncertainty. "I didn't mean to make things weird." He looked away and for a moment I saw a slight flush color his cheeks, a sign that he might be grappling with the same unease I was struggling to contain. I found myself frozen, wanting to comfort him, to tell him everything was okay, that this awkwardness didn't change anything between us. But the words wouldn't come. I felt unable to break the silence. At that moment, I realized with striking clarity that I had never felt so comfortable with my own son. Instinctively, I reached out and placed my hand gently on his shoulder, hoping the small gesture would bring him some comfort. A faint smile stretched across my lips as I tried to ease the tension, even though I could feel my own anxiety seeping through my words. "It's okay, Lenny," I murmured in a soft, steady voice to try to reassure him. "It's just we've been alone together for so long, haven't we? We're used to it, and now it's a bit strange." He nodded in understanding, and I saw a flicker of relief pass through his eyes, as if my words had struck a chord. Just as the atmosphere seemed to lighten, the doorbell rang, shattering the fragile calm we had just begun to establish. That sharp sound pulled us both out of the moment, reminding us of the world beyond that door. I got up quickly, my heart still racing from the exchange, feeling a strange gratitude for the interruption. As I walked to the door and noticed my pulse quickening, and I couldn't shake the lingering strange energy from the conversation with Lenny. When I opened the door, I found our neighbor Mark standing on the other side. He was smiling, his familiar face offering an immediate sense of comfort. I could tell his gaze lingered on me a moment longer than usual, as if he were searching for something beneath the surface. I quickly pulled myself together, hoping the lingering tension from the previous moment wouldn't be burnt to him. "Hi, Mark," I said. His voice was warm, always friendly and easygoing. "I thought I'd stop by to see if you needed anything. I know it's been getting colder lately, and I can help with any heating issues if you have them." His thoughtfulness was a welcome relief, and I felt a wave of unexpected dread wash over me for a brief moment. I allowed the comfort of Mark's presence to ease the remaining anxiety. "Oh, thanks, Mark," I said, giving him a more genuine smile now. "Actually, the house does get a bit chilly, especially at night. I'd really appreciate your help." Mark stepped inside, his step steady and reassuring. I immediately felt Lenny's gaze on us. From the corner of my eye, I could see his face, his expression hard to read, but something in the way he watched us tightened Mr. for a brief moment. I could have sworn I saw something close to jealousy in his eyes, though he quickly masked it returning to his usual indifference. His look caught me off guard, leaving me with a sense of unease. Maybe Lenny was feeling something more complicated than he had imagined. As Mark moved through the living room, checking the heating and making small talk, asking how things were going at home, how I was managing, his voice was light and his presence comforting in an unexpected way. But all the while, my attention kept drifting back to Lenny, who stood in the hallway, watching us with a quiet intensity that made the air between us feel heavy with unspoken things. The tension in the room had subtly shifted. I found myself torn between wanting to engage with Mark and needing to address the unease I felt growing with Lenny. It was as if he were quietly vying for my attention. I didn't know how to navigate this delicate space. I glanced at Lenny one last time, and for a brief second, I saw something flicker in his eyes, as if he were grappling with feelings he hadn't shared with me. But before I could make sense of it, Mark turned to me, his face breaking into a warm smile. "Everything okay here, Elise," he said in a kin voice. "Call me if you need any help." It thanked him, and as he left, I felt the tension between Lenny and me intensify. The atmosphere had thickened. Everything felt more complicated. I gently closed that door behind me and turned to find Lenny standing still in the hallway, his arms crossed tightly over his chest. His face was serious, his gaze fixed, and there was something in his posture that made it clear that what was happening between us was far from resolved. "Yeah, okay, Lenny?" I asked softly, trying to understand the distance that had suddenly formed between us. I needed to know what was going through his mind, why the space between us seemed to be growing wider. He shrugged almost dismissively, his voice barely audible. "Yeah, I'm fine. I just didn't expect Mark to show up. That's all," he replied. But it didn't seem to explain everything going on beneath the surface. I wanted to reach out to learn more, to understand why things felt different. But before I could ask another question, he turned and walked past me, heading to his room without another glance. The silence between us was deafening, and the soft click of his door closing behind him echoed like the final note of an unfinished conversation. I stood frozen in place, overwhelmed by a strange mix of relief, confusion, and troubling feelings, as if something important had been left unresolved. I found myself staring at Lenny's closed bedroom door, my heart heavy with a sense of loss I couldn't put into words. It was as if something had changed between us, something unspoken lingering in the air like a cloud ready to burst. My mind replayed everything. That closeness earlier, the subtle way his gaze lingered when Mark was there, and the undeniable tension simmering just beneath the surface, threatening to break free. I walked to my room and sank onto the edge of the bed, my thoughts racing as I tried to make sense of everything that had just happened. I knew I couldn't ignore it forever. Sooner or later, we'd have to face the shift between us. But I didn't know where to begin or how to untangle this web of emotions. As I was lost in my thoughts, I heard a soft knock at my door. My heart leapt, a sudden hope washing over me. Maybe it was Lenny coming back. "Come in," I called, my voice steadier than I felt. The door cracked open, and there he was, standing in the doorway with that unreadable expression I knew so well. He stepped inside and sat beside me on the bed, his hands clasped, his gaze fixed on Theffler. The silence between us was tense, thick, and heavy, as if the weight of everything unsaid was too much to bear. The moment felt almost suffocating, yet necessary. Finally, Lenny broke the silence. His voice was barely above a whisper. "Mom," he began, his words hesitant, as if he were choosing them carefully. "I don't know what's going on. I'm sorry if I made things weird earlier." His words trailed off, stuck in his throat. His frustration was clear as he struggled to express emotions heckled and fully articulate. I reached out and placed my hand on his, offering quiet reassurance, a gentle squeeze that said more than words could. "It's okay, Lenny," I replied softly, my voice steady despite the uncertainty swirling inside me. "We're both feeling a bit lost. We've been alone for so long, and sometimes things get complicated. It's okay to feel lost." He nodded slowly, his eyes still fixed on his hands, a distant look in them. His gaze was sheepy, laden with a deep emotion that tugged at my heart. Then, after what felt like an eternity, he looked up and met my eyes. His gaze was filled with uncertainty, frustration, desire, and other things I couldn't quite name, but that felt precedent different. It wasn't just the usual frustration or confusion. There was something else, something raw and unspoken. "I don't know what to do with all these feelings," he murmured, his voice so low, I almost missed keywords. It was as if he was afraid to admit it, yet equally afraid to face what was brewing between us. The vulnerability in his words hit me harder than I expected. And in that moment, I realized how much this was affecting him, too. I felt my heart tighten at the confusion in his gaze. For a moment, the urge to pull him into my arms overwhelmed me. I wanted to hold him, tell him everything would be okay, reassure him that we could get through this together. But I hesitated, unsure if it would truly help or if it would complicate things further. What he needed wasn't clear, and I was certain that my instinct to comfort him was the right thing to do. So I stayed still, letting the heavy silence between us speak louder than words could. I sat there feeling the weight of that unspoken tension, waiting for the right moment, unsure how to break the silence. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, I took a deep breath and turned to him. I looked into his eyes, searching for any sign of what he was feeling, what he needed. "Lenny," I said softly, "maybe we just need to step back and think about all this seriously." I sighed gently, trying to find the right words, a balance between comfort and understanding. It's normal to feel close, but it's also normal to need space to sort through your thoughts. Wouldn't need to have all the answers right now. He nodded slowly, as if the weight of my words was sinking in. Then, in an unexpected move that caught me off guard, he rested his head on Miss Holder. The gesture immediately took back to when he was younger, when he would often seek comfort in this familiar, warm, and soothing way. Yet, there was something different now. There was an underlying tension I couldn't ignore, a silent awareness that things between us had shifted in a way we hadn't fully grasped. My heart softened at his touch, and without thinking, I wrapped my arm around him, holding him in a protective, comforting embrace. It was an embrace that reassured me, even though I knew the lingering questions between us were far from resolved. There was so much unspoken, so many emotions hadn't yet fully processed. But in that moment, I realized we might not need all the answers. For now, we could move forward step by step, figure things out together, even if the path ahead seemed uncertain and complicated. As we sat there holding each other, I felt a deep calm wash over me, a subtle hope lingered in the air. No matter what we're facing, no matter how difficult things seemed, we could always find a way together. We stayed like that for a while, wrapped in silence. That closeness between us offered a fleeting sense of peace. For a brief moment, it felt like the confusion and complexity of our situation might dissolve simply through our proximity. But deep down, I knew it wasn't that simple. The comfort of his presence was undeniable. But beneath that warmth, there was an underlying unease, a feeling neither of us could fully shake. After a while, Lenny pulled back slightly. He lifted his head and met my gaze. His expression, serious and intense, transformed the comfort of the moment. "Mom, I don't know what to do with all these feelings," he said softly, his voice tinged with uncertainty. "I don't want to make things harder between us, but I can't ignore them either." His words hung in the air, laden with unspoken tension, like a question hadn't had the courage to voice. The weight of his silence pressed down on. My mind spun frantically as I searched for the right words. I opened at my mouth, but before I could say anything, there was another knock at the door. We both jumped, startled by the interruption. The knock was firm and deliberate, almost as if the person on the other side sensed something was amiss. A wave of nervous energy washed over me, and without thinking, I got up and walked to the door. When I opened it, Mark was standing there again, his face shadowed with concern, as if he'd sensed something heavy in my eyes. "Sorry to bother you," he said, his voice filled with genuine worrying. "I just wanted to check if everything was okay. You seemed a bit off earlier. And I wanted to make sure you were all right." I hesitated for a moment. then glanced over my shoulder at Lenny. He was watching us closely, his expression unreal, but charged with unspoken questions. I took a deep breath to steady my voice, though it trembled slightly. Thanks, Mark, but we're fine. Just having a quiet evening, I replied. Mark gave me a long questioning look, then shifted his gaze to Lenny. His eyes lingered on him, thoughtful and inquisitive, before returning to me. All right, he said in a softer tone, just remember, I'm next door. If you need anything, don't hesitate. As he turned and left, I closed the door with a soft click and leaned against it for a moment, gathering my thoughts. I turned it back to Lenny, who was still there, watching me with an intensity that gave goosebumps. His eyes seemed to pierce through me, searching for something, perhaps the truth or reassurance. After a long pause, he stood, his movement slow and deliberate, and I felt my heart quicken. The air between us was heavy, thick with everything neither of us dared to say. He stepped closer, and I braced myself for the words that might follow. But when he reached me, he stopped. His expression shifted as if he were grappling with an inner struggle. Maybe we shouldn't push this, Mom, he said softly, his voice trembling slightly. Maybe we need time to think. His words hit me like a wave, and I nodded, my heart tightening with some conflicting emotions he must have been feeling. I understood the need for space, for time to reflect. Absolutely, Lenny, I replied softly, my voice heavy with anticipation and the unspoken. We both need to think this through. We can't rush it. Lenny nodded, and we stood there silent. Our closeness was an odd mix of connection and distance, as if we were in the same boat, teetering on the edge of something we couldn't fully grasp or control. It felt like an end, but also the beginning of something new. Something we couldn't yet define. As he slowly walked to his room, I remained frozen in place, wondering what future held and whether we could find a way for. The future held and whether we could find a way forward together. Part of me wanted to call him back to ask him to talk more, but I knew we both needed time. I headed to my room, my heart heavy, but with a glimmer of hope. No matter how complicated things seemed, I knew our bond, forged through years of love and trust, would help us navigate this challenge.